Hello, my name is Diane, and today we're going to do the game night book tag. I also have a book blog. I don't know if I've ever really talked about it on here, but one of the other book blogs that I follow is Witty and Sarcastic Book Club, and a couple weeks ago they created this tag, and I thought it was really cute. I really like books, I really like board games, so I thought this was a lot of fun. Each of the prompts are different board games. I was pleasantly surprised to see that I have played all of the board games that they used as prompts. So each of the prompts are based on a different board game, and then at the end I'm also gonna share with you some of my favorite board games because I do really like board games and I don't get to play them quite as much as I maybe would like to anymore, but I still do enjoy them when I get the chance. First prompt is the game Clue, a book featuring a mystery, and for this I'm choosing The Butcher of the Forest by Primi Muhammad. The story follows a woman who lives in a village surrounded by a magical and very dangerous forest, and one day the tyrant who rules the land, his two young children, have ventured into the woods not knowing any better, and he sends her to go get them and threatens the lives of her family and fellow villagers if she does not succeed. So she has to go in to find these children and deal with whatever horrible things await her in the forest. This is not a true mystery in that she's not trying to solve something, but there is a mystery surrounding the forest and what has happened to the children, where she may find them, and also some mystery surrounding her past, which is eventually revealed as the story unfolds. The next prompt is Monopoly, a book focused on treasure or money. For this, I'm choosing Among Thieves by M.J. Kuhn. I don't read a lot of books that feature treasure or money, I found when I was trying to pick a book for this. And I honestly don't remember that much about this book. It's just not one that's really stuck with me since I read it. But it focuses on a main character who is in a bit of trouble trying to escape her past. It keeps catching up with her, and she thinks that if she can steal this, I don't remember what it was, some important item from a vault within the city, then she can finally escape her past and use that. I don't know. Maybe this wasn't the best book to pick because I can't really talk about it that in depth, but I enjoyed it when I read it. It just didn't leave a lasting impression on me, but it does center around stealing a treasure. The next game is Ticket to Ride, a book featuring travel. For this, I'm choosing The Lies of the Ojunga by Moses Osiotomi. This is a novella that I absolutely loved, following a character called Tutu, who is a young boy, and his mother is dying. They live in a city in the desert where water is extremely scarce and very much rationed, and because she has not had enough water, she is probably not going to make it very long, so Tutu ventures out into the desert for the first time ever in search of a water source that will hopefully save his mother, if not his entire city. And we go along with him as he explores the world outside of his city, encountering other people and learning about the other settlements that are within the desert and the way the world actually works. He learns some pretty harsh truths about things, and we see him leaving the city and eventually coming back with whatever knowledge he has discovered. And I really enjoyed going on that journey with him. The next game is Settlers of Catan, which is a book with a lot going on. For this, I went with Infinity Gate by M.R. Carey. This doesn't have a lot going on in that it's a very complicated tale. It has a lot going on in that it's a story about alternate universes, alternate dimensions. We have an infinite possibility of versions of Earth, and throughout the story we follow three main characters who all come from different Earths, but we start with one character and follow them until we meet our second character, follow them until we meet our third character, and we follow them until all of the characters are together. So it's a pretty digestible story in the way that it's laid out and presented, even though there is so much going on within the grand scheme of things. All of these worlds have the potential to be connected through interdimensional travel. I really enjoyed exploring that possibility with these characters and seeing how they all wound up together. The next game is Risk, a book in which an attempt at domination is the key to the story, and for this I'm going with The Bladed Faith by David Dalglish. The story is set on an island where the kingdom there is conquered at the beginning of the first book by this empire, and they are taken over, their gods are killed, the royal family is slain, and they are now absorbed by this empire. And we follow a small group of rebels who are forming a rebellion to hopefully reclaim their island. The domination of the empire is what really kicks the story off and sets things in motion, and from there it's just all about taking back that nation, which is more or less the game of Risk. The next game is Apples to Apples, a book that makes you laugh. I don't read a lot of laugh out loud stories, or if I do, it's just one moment or one comment within the story and not the book overall that I think is laughable. So for this, I'm going to go with Giant Days by John Allison. This is a graphic novel series following three girls who are college roommates and become best friends, and they just kind of go through school and life and figuring out their careers and their relationships and their friendships with one another. It's very wholesome. They talk about a lot of real world problems, but it's also very goofy and ridiculous. The characters are very silly. The way that they express themselves and some of the things that they do are very funny. And it's just a very fun series overall. The next game is Scrabble, a book with beautiful writing. For this, I chose The Ghosts of Beatrice Bird by Louisa Morgan. This book is mostly just two women sat in front of a fire telling each other their personal stories. There's a lot more to it than that, but if you really boil it down, that's kind of what happens for the majority of the story. But I was so engrossed in what these two women were telling each other, the way that they were relating to one another and connecting with one another, and eventually the way that they support and help one another get through their own personal struggles. And the fact that not a ton of action for the majority of the story was happening, but I was so immersed in what was happening, I attribute to the writing. I just thought it was very engaging to just hear about these women's lives and how they eventually can connect and help one another, even though their situations are quite different. They fall into each other's lives at the exact moment that they need each other, and it just made me want to read all of Louisa Morgan's other books, even though they're not the types of books that I would naturally be drawn to. The final prompt is an indie board game, an indie or self-published book that everyone should read, and for this I gotta pick Minor Mage by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher has quite a few books out at this point. A number of them are traditionally published, but she does also have a handful of indie published books. I think the most notable one is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. That seems to be the one everyone knows and loves from her. Similar to that and more recently published is Illuminations, which is a very different story from A Wizard's Guide, but I think it has a very similar feel. They both follow young girls who are exploring different types of magic. In A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, the girl can manipulate things that she is baking, and she has to step up where the adults in her life are failing and fight to save her town and her family with her magically enchanted baked goods. In Illuminations, we have a girl who lives with her family and is very close with her family and accidentally unleashes some dangerous magic, and they have the ability to manipulate paintings. Both very cool, very strange forms of magic, very cute stories. But my favorite of these indie pub books from T. Kingfisher is Minor Mage, which follows a young boy and his familiar that is an armadillo, and he's kind of bullied by his village who are in very tough times. His mother's out of town, so there's no one looking out for him, and all of the adults in the town kind of bully him to go on this very dangerous journey by himself. So he sets off with his armadillo and his very small arsenal of not very impressive magical spells to try and save his town. It's a little spooky for what it is. I would call all of these middle grade. I guess it depends on the middle grade reader. I think this one's definitely the darkest feeling of these three, but the magic, the familiar, there's some silly elements, but the overall tone is a bit spookier, but it's also a very sweet, very wholesome story, I think. And it's definitely my favorite of these three. I really loved it. I loved the characters in it. And I wish more people talked about it. I never hear people talking about it when they talk about T. Kingfisher. I feel like I hear a lot about her, but not a lot about this specific book, and it's my favorite that I've read from her so far. So those are all the book prompts, but I do want to take this chance to just tell you about some of my favorite board games that I have, the ones that I tend to pick to play when I get to pick what games we play. The first one is Kodama. This is a game you play with cards and you make little trees for these tree spirits, and you build little trees for the tree spirits to make them happy, and it's just, you're competing against the people you're playing against, but it doesn't feel very competitive in that it is just a very cute, relaxing game. I love the art in it. I think it's very pretty. But you make little trees and they have different mushrooms or fireflies, or I forget what all of the things are, certain things in them, and you gain points by what's in your tree. But it's just a very fun, very cute game. Another of my favorites is Dragoon, where you play as dragons and little villages can appear and you can either watch over the villages or destroy them, and the whole point is to just build up your dragon horde faster than the other dragons and get as much gold as you can. And you just go around the map bringing all the gold as much as you can back to your dragon's lair. This is a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with this one. I like being a dragon and trying to steal everybody else's gold. And the last game, and probably my favorite game, is Viticulture. I got this as a gift, I think for my birthday years ago, but it is a worker placement game, and you plant grapes, harvest them, make wine, and then fill wine orders, and you're competing with the other wineries, which would be the other players. And you get your little workers and your own little vineyard card that you place them on. I just think this is very fun. I really love the art on it too. And there are a couple of expansions. I don't have any of the expansions, but there are some that give you more cards to play with. And I think one of them expands the things that you can make beyond just wine. So those are some books I like, some board games that I really like. Let me know what your favorite board game is. I love seeing other board games. There's so many different board games out now. So many like very specific, unique ones also. So I would love some new board game recommendations. Otherwise, that's all for me today. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.